What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. So, I noticed you got some people out there. Shout out to the brother Ticket TV. He did a video talking about Dame Lillard. Dame is not happy about the fact that the Bucks have fired Mike Budenholzer. All right. It's funny because he said that. How does a championship coach get treated like that? But in recent years, Frank Vogel was fired after winning a championship. And Nick Nurse was recently fired, and he won a championship back in 2019 and coached year the very next season. But anyway, I want to talk about some of the feedback and some of the responses, I guess, as far as on social media when it comes to Mike Budenholzer being fired. And I noticed that a lot of people are saying that the Bucks were wrong for doing this. How could you fire this guy after, the news broke that his brother was tragically lost his life in a car accident, which I totally empathize with. I hope that Mike Budenholzer right now is getting the comfort that he deserves, him and his family, at this time, having dealt with that tragedy. I can only imagine the pain that he was feeling while he was out there trying to do his job. I truly do sympathize with Mike Budenholzer right now as a person in his private life. But as a coach, this isn't an isolated incident. He has a history of making a lot of strategic coaching errors, in particular in the playoffs, and whenever he's matched up with a coach that is one of the elites, as we saw with Eric Spoelstra, or as we see with anybody that's considered an elite coach. He gets outcoached. It's true that the Bucks won a championship back in 2021, but in reality, if you've watched the Bucks over the past 5 years, that championship came in spite of Mike Budenholzer. All right? There have been coaches that have won championships, but it does not necessarily make them all-time great coaches if you actually watch them coach. I'll give you a great example. Billy Cunningham. Billy Cunningham, tremendous player, Hall of Fame player with the Philadelphia 76ers. As a coach, if you looked at his win percentage and you saw that he won a championship, you would reach the conclusion that, he must have been a great coach. But in reality, he wasn't. Dr. J only won one championship in the NBA. To be honest with you, it really wasn't Dr. J's fault that they only won one championship. Now, there have been years when you could say a teammate of his didn't play to their potential. Maybe when Gene Shue was the coach, you could say George McGinnis didn't play well in that series. I think Daryl Dawkins didn't play very well, if I'm not mistaken. I got to look at the numbers again. But in many of those instances, Billy Cunningham got outcoached. He got outcoached in 1980 by Paul Westhead and Pat Riley, right? He got outcoached in 1981 in the Eastern Conference Finals when Bill Fitch, who was a great example of the fact that you can't judge a coach by a win percentage, he got outcoached by Bill Fitch, when they came back from that 3-1 deficit in the Eastern Conference Finals. He got outcoached in 1982 when the Lakers beat them in the finals again. And the only reason they really won a championship in 83 is because they were just so overpowered. They caught Moses Malone right at the tail end of his prime, won another MVP, and Moses Malone, Andrew Toney at the peak of his powers, Dr. J still had a lot left in the tank, Bobby Jones, Maurice Cheeks, that team powered through the Eastern Conference, won 65 games, powered through the postseason and won a championship. But it wasn't because of the great strategic coaching of a Billy Cunningham. Now, there have been great coaches who had a big influence on their teams winning championships. I like to bring out, for instance, Phil Jackson. Now, Phil Jackson, you could say he wasn't the greatest X's and O's coach, but he knew instinctively when to call timeout. He knew when it was time to stop the other team's momentum. He knew when it was time to try to slow down the other team's offensive players with a double team. He knew when and what to say to certain players to get them motivated, rile them up. He was an intellectual coach. Another great coach, not in the NBA, but I give him his due, Bobby Knight was a great coach. He had different motivations, different times. Mike Budenholzer is not a great coach, man. Okay? But I see a lot of people saying that it's not right what they did. Well, okay. I just wanted people to keep the same energy 6 years ago. Isaiah Thomas, back in the 2017 playoffs, on the same day of a playoff game, lost his sister in a car accident. You may recall that if you were watching basketball. He actually learned the news that morning and was seen crying. I remember watching it. He was crying right there in the arena. And I thought to myself, he's not going to play. How can he play? But he went out there and played. And not only did he play, he was the reason why they won. Remember, that was the year that he was like top 5 in MVP voting, I think 4th or 3rd or something. There was a stretch, I think in the month of January 2017, where he was averaging 33 points a game. I think that year he averaged 28, 29 points a game for Boston. He led the NBA in points scored in the fourth quarter. One of the great seasons in Boston Celtics history. And he went out there and had one hell of a game. And you know what happened that offseason? He got traded. He was set to make a buku amount of money. Showed the type of game and hustle and grit and determination and love and passion for the game to go out there and put on a performance even when he's physically and mentally and psychologically hurting. And what did they do? They traded his ass. They said his hip was bad. So they used that as an excuse, Danny Ainge, to trade him. And you know what I saw most people say? Well, it was a business decision. The league has the team has a right to make that business decision. I applaud him for his performance, and I know it was terrible what happened to his sister, but it was a business decision. It was a business decision. It was a business decision. But now I see a lot of these same people all of a sudden playing the violin for Mike Budenholzer, a coach who did not coach well. Coached terribly. But he gets to build an excuse because of what happened. And like I said, I'm sorry about what happened to him. But he did a horrible coaching job. Isaiah Thomas, on the other hand, performed like a champion. And he got traded. And the NBA completely turned their backs on this guy. Turned their backs on the guy. So that's all I got to say about that. You know what I mean? It was a business decision that the Bucks let him go. That's the energy that I saw from people 6 years ago. It was a business decision. So anyway, that's all I got to say about it. Tell me what you guys think.